Snoop was at his usual taco truck, parked in the same spot like always. Sun was out, but not too crazy yet. He had a fat carne asada burrito in one hand, a lemonade in the other, just vibing. Music playing from somebody's car, smell of grilled meat in the air. Slow morning. He wasn't thinking about much. Just eating, chilling, letting the day do its thing. Then he saw the old dude. Man looked like he'd been walking for a minute, shirt wrinkled, hair all over the place, holding some crumpled paper like it was important. Kept stopping, checking it, looking around. Walked up to some young cats at the bus stop, asked something, they just shook their heads and kept it moving. Snoop took another bite, watched for a second. Wasn't his business. But something about the way dude looked, kinda lost, kinda tired, made him set his burrito down, wipe his hands on his jeans, and call out, "Ayo, big homie, you straight?" The old man turned, squinting like he wasn't sure Snoop was talking to him. He hesitated for a second, then shuffled a little closer, holding up the crumpled paper. I lost my dog," he said, voice a little shaky. "Been looking all morning." Snoop adjusted his sunglasses, eyeing the paper. It was a faded flyer with a grainy picture of a tiny chihuahua, the name Peanut written underneath in shaky handwriting. A chihuahua? In LA? That dog could be anywhere. Snoop could have just wished him luck and gone back to his burrito, but something about the way the old man clutched that flyer made him nod instead. "Aight, OG. Let's find Peanut." Snoop wasn't about to go knocking on random doors, but he knew where to start. People who saw everything, the ones always posted up on the block, the ones who knew who came through, who left, who was new, who didn't belong, and most importantly, who might have seen a tiny chihuahua running scared through the streets. First stop? The corner store. If you needed to know something in the neighborhood, you didn't go to the cops, you didn't ask around like some lost tourist, you went to the place where people came in and out all day. The one spot where everybody stopped at least once between home and wherever they were going, the one place that had a front row seat to all the small stories that made up the big picture of the block, the corner store. Snoop pushed open the glass door, the little bell above jingling as he stepped inside, the smell of old wood, cold soda, and stale potato chips filling the air, the same racks of snacks, the same scratched-up counter, the same old freezer humming in the back like it had been there since the 80s, and behind the counter, same dude as always, D, built like a retired linebacker, rocking his usual Lakers jersey, Bluetooth earpiece in, talking about nothing important, always half on a call, always halfway paying attention. Snoop leaned against the counter, tapping his fingers lightly against the scratched-up glass where they kept the lottery tickets, letting D finish whatever conversation he was having, waiting for the right moment, knowing that if you pushed too fast, you wouldn't get the answer you wanted, but if you waited just enough, gave people time to notice you were there, gave them time to wonder what you wanted, they'd start talking first. D finally looked up, pulling the earpiece out, eyeing Snoop with that half-annoyed, half-curious look he always had, the kind that said he was ready to either help or make you work for it. "What's good, dog?" Snoop nodded toward the old man standing next to him, then reached into his pocket, pulled out the flyer, smoothed it out on the counter, tapped it twice with his finger. "OG here lost his dog. Little chihuahua, named Peanut. You seen anything?" D squinted, glancing at the flyer, then leaned back, rubbing his chin like he was thinking real hard about it. But Snoop knew better. This wasn't about memory. This was about making sure there was something in it for him, because information was like currency, and D never gave out currency for free. "Man," D said, dragging the word out like he was debating whether it was even worth talking, "I see a lot of things, you know? Dogs, cats, people losing stuff, people finding stuff, hard to keep track." Snoop sighed, already knowing where this was going, already reaching into his other pocket, pulling out a sealed pack of backwoods, tapping it against the counter like a deck of playing cards, not even needing to say anything because D's eyes had already locked onto the pack, the gears in his head turning, the decision already made before he even opened his mouth. D grinned, snatching the pack up before Snoop could even finish setting it down, running his thumb along the seal like he was checking to make sure it was real, nodding to himself, satisfied. Ite, he said, stuffing the pack into his pocket, leaning on the counter now like they were in some top-secret briefing. Some lady came in earlier, all flustered, talking about how she almost ran over a little dog near that alley on 52nd. Said it ran off before she could do anything. Could be your boy. The old man's eyes lit up, gripping the edge of the counter like Dee had just handed him the winning lottery ticket, his fingers twitching against the wood. 52nd, he repeated, voice almost cracking. You're sure? Dee shrugged, already half distracted, already pulling his phone out like the conversation was over. Ain't no guarantees, but that's the best lead you're gonna get today. Snoop nodded, satisfied, stepping back, turning toward the door, giving Dee a two-finger salute. Good looking out, my guy. As they stepped outside, the old man let out a shaky breath, looking down at the flyer again, like he needed to remind himself why they were even doing this, like he was still trying to believe they were getting somewhere. Snoop took a sip of his lemonade, thinking, a dog that small, scared, running loose in the city? Time wasn't on their side. They hopped in Snoop's ride, the old man in the passenger seat, clutching the flyer in both hands like it was the last piece of hope he had left, his knuckles white against the paper. Snoop turned the key, the engine rumbled to life, music low on the speakers, something smooth, something easy, something that filled the space without making it feel heavy. So Peanut, huh? The old man nodded, not looking away from the flyer. Got him when my wife was still around. After she passed, he's all I got left. Snoop exhaled through his nose, nodding. We gon' find him. 52nd was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't last long in a city like this, like the street was just catching its breath before the day really kicked in. Snoop pulled up slow, scanning the sidewalks, looking for any movement, any sign of a tiny dog that shouldn't be out here alone. The old man leaned forward, peering through the windshield, breath held like he was afraid to blink. Then, something moved. A shadow darting near a dumpster. Small. Quick. Nervous. Snoop cut the engine, tilting his sunglasses down, eyes locked on the alley. Think we got something. They stepped out, moving slow, trying not to spook whatever was hiding back there. Snoop took the lead, one hand in his pocket, the other pulling out the last bit of carne asada from his burrito, holding it loose, letting the smell carry. The old man stopped just behind him, eyes wide, barely breathing. Peanut? Silence. Then, rustling. Snoop's grip tightened on the meat, voice low, easy. Come on, lil homie, I know you hungry. More movement. Two small glowing eyes peered out from behind a trash can. Then, another hiss. But it wasn't Peanut. It was a raccoon. Snoop took a slow step back, muttering under his breath. Man, we really doing this today? The raccoon took a step forward, shoulders squared like it was about to throw hands. The old man let out a defeated sigh. That's not Peanut. Snoop exhaled, shaking his head, stuffing the meat back in his pocket. Yeah, we out. They turned back toward the car, the old man rubbing his forehead, looking like the weight of the world was settling back onto his shoulders. Back to square one. The alley smelled like hot trash, burnt oil, and bad decisions, the kind of place where the city forgot to clean up, where things ended up when they didn't have anywhere else to go, where stray animals moved like ghosts through the shadows, surviving off whatever scraps they could find, dodging the occasional rat, the occasional broken bottle, the occasional person who was just as lost as them. The old man hesitated at the entrance, gripping the flyer like it was a shield, like holding onto it could make this place less overwhelming, less like the last stop on a journey that was already wearing him down. Snoop took a slow step forward, adjusting his sunglasses, scanning the walls, the dumpsters, the fence at the back, looking for anything small, anything that moved different than the usual alley dwellers, anything that looked like a lost chihuahua instead of something that belonged here. The city was always loud, always humming, always filling the air with something, but in the alley, everything felt still, like the noise didn't reach all the way back here, like the air was thicker, slower, like stepping into a different world where nothing rushed, where everything just sat and waited to be found or forgotten. Snoop could hear the old man breathing, steady but shallow, like he was afraid to make a sound that would scare Peanut away, like he believed the next noise he made might be the one that pushed the dog further into hiding, or worse, confirmed that they were already too late. Snoop took another step, the gravel crunching under his sneakers, his eyes flicking toward a pile of old newspapers stacked up against a rusted-out shopping cart, something shifting just slightly beneath them. Too quick to tell if it was the wind or something alive, too subtle to call it just a coincidence. The old man saw it too, his grip on the flyer tightening as he whispered, barely loud enough for Snoop to hear, "Peanut?" Nothing. No movement. Just the quiet pressing in on them again, the weight of the moment settling back into their chests, the hope stretching thin but not breaking yet, not until they knew for sure. Snoop reached into his pocket, pulling out the last piece of carne asada from his burrito, holding it out with 2 fingers, letting the scent carry, letting it do the talking for him. Knowing that food had a way of pulling lost things out of hiding, had a way of making animals forget their fear just long enough to take a risk, to step into the open, to trust something they normally wouldn't. He crouched down slow, keeping his movements easy, controlled, not forcing the moment, just letting it play out, just waiting to see if whatever was under those newspapers was hungry enough to come out. There was a rustling, small, hesitant, like whatever was back there was trying to decide if it wanted to show itself, if the food was worth it, if the people standing in the alley were safe or just another problem. Snoop didn't move, didn't blink, just kept holding the meat out, patient, steady. Then, from the shadows, 2 tiny eyes reflected the light, low to the ground, unblinking, locked onto him like they were sizing him up. The old man sucked in a sharp breath, his voice shaking when he whispered, "Peanut?" The thing stepped forward just slightly, just enough to make itself visible. It was small, low to the ground, but it wasn't Peanut. It wasn't even a dog. Snoop exhaled through his nose, already knowing before the thing moved again, already feeling it in the way it held itself, and the way its body tensed like it was ready to defend something, like it wasn't just an animal looking for food, but an animal ready to fight for it. The raccoon took another step forward, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the piece of meat in Snoop's hand, its tiny fingers twitching like it was deciding whether to lunge or wait for him to drop it first. The old man took a step back, muttering, That's not Peanut." Snoop kept still, kept his voice low, casual. "Yeah, I see that." The raccoon didn't blink, didn't move, just stared at Snoop like it was waiting for him to do something stupid, waiting for him to make a mistake, waiting for the moment where it could take what it wanted without having to work for it. Snoop had seen that look before, had seen it in people, in animals, and situations where someone had nothing left to lose and everything to gain if the other person slipped up first. He wasn't about to be the one that slipped up. Snoop tilted his head just slightly, side-eyeing the old man, his voice even, calm. "Aight, OG, let's back up real slow, keep it cool, don't make no sudden movements." The old man didn't argue, just nodded, taking the first careful step backward, then another, his shoes barely making a sound on the pavement. The raccoon twitched, its head following them, but it didn't move, didn't attack, just stood its ground like it had just won something, like it knew they weren't gonna fight for this little piece of meat. Snoop took one last look at the raccoon, then at the carne asada still in his hand, then just sighed and tossed it toward the trash cans. The raccoon darted after it immediately, grabbing it with both hands like it had just hit the jackpot. "Man," Snoop muttered, shaking his head as he turned back toward the street, "we really out here negotiating with a damn raccoon today." As they stepped back onto the sidewalk, the old man let out a long breath, running a hand down his face, looking like reality was starting to settle back in, looking like he was realizing just how low the odds were of actually finding Peanut if they were out here mistaking raccoons for chihuahuas. Snoop adjusted his sunglasses, glancing up at the sky, feeling the weight of the situation but not letting it settle in too deep, not letting it turn into something that felt like failure yet. "Aight," he said, turning toward the old man, "we still got time, but we gotta be smart about this. Where else would Peanut go?" The old man thought for a moment, rubbing his temple like he was trying to pull the answer from some part of his memory he hadn't accessed in a while, then exhaled. "He's scared of loud noises. He'd run somewhere quiet." Snoop nodded, taking that in, letting it settle, running through the map in his head, running through the places where a tiny, nervous dog might go if it was trying to get away from the noise of the city. Snoop pulled out his phone, checking the time, knowing that they couldn't waste too much of it chasing the wrong leads, knowing that Peanut wasn't going to wait forever in one place, knowing that the longer they took, the further he could be. He glanced at the old man, then back down the street. "Aight, we checked the quiet spots." He started walking, slow but sure, and the old man followed without hesitation, both of them leaving the alley behind, both of them knowing that they were nowhere near the end of this search, but at least now, they knew where not to look. The streets of Los Angeles had a rhythm, a pulse that never really stopped, only slowed down in certain places, certain hours, certain corners where the city took a breath before the next rush of movement, traffic, and noise. Snoop and the old man moved with that rhythm, their pace steady but not rushed, their eyes scanning the sidewalks, the alleyways, the gaps between fences where a dog might squeeze through, their ears tuned in, listening for any sound that didn't belong, any noise that stood out from the usual background hum of the city. Snoop knew sound. He built a career off of it. Knew how layers of noise stacked on top of each other, how certain frequencies cut through others, how sometimes the smallest sound, one right note, one unexpected snare hit, one voice, could change everything. He wasn't just listening for any bark. He was listening for a bark that didn't belong to the street dogs, a bark that was nervous, out of place, that wasn't claiming territory but calling for help. The old man was listening too, but in a different way, his head tilting slightly with every passing second, his lips slightly parted like he was about to say something but kept stopping himself, his mind racing through memories, through the way Peanut's bark sounded in the quiet of his home, the way it changed when he was scared, when he needed something, when he was unsure. A car alarm went off down the block. A delivery truck hit a pothole, sending a loud metallic clang into the air. A woman on the phone outside a laundromat was arguing with someone about how she wasn't about to drive all the way across town just to drop off a jacket she didn't even like. Every noise competed for attention, every sound fighting to be noticed. But none of them were the right one. The old man let out a slow breath, pressing his lips together, the weight of exhaustion starting to settle on his shoulders, the realization creeping in that they could be walking around all day and never find anything. That maybe Peanut was already too far, that maybe they were chasing something that had already disappeared. Snoop wasn't about to let that doubt take over. "Ain't no lost cause yet, oh gee," he said, adjusting his sunglasses, keeping his eyes ahead, scanning, waiting, knowing that sometimes the moment right before you're ready to give up is when you find exactly what you're looking for. And then they heard it. It was faint, barely there, almost swallowed by the city, but it was there, a single, high-pitched bark, distant, quick, cut off too soon like whoever made it wasn't sure if they should be making noise at all. The old man froze mid-step, his eyes going wide, his head snapping toward the direction of the sound before Snoop even had time to react. "That's him," he whispered, his voice shaky, filled with something close to panic, close to hope. Snoop didn't question it. Didn't ask if the old man was sure. He just started moving, his steps picking up speed, his body instinctively following the sound, his mind already racing through possibilities. Was Peanut stuck somewhere? Trapped? Was someone holding him? Was he in danger? The old man was moving too, faster than Snoop expected, his feet shuffling but determined, his hands balled into fists like he was ready to fight whoever or whatever was standing between him and his dog. Then another bark came, closer this time, clearer, higher in pitch, like Peanut had realized someone was coming, like he knew he needed to be heard, like he was trying to tell them where he was before it was too late. It was coming from behind a tall wooden fence, the kind that wasn't meant to keep people out but to keep things in, the slats old but still sturdy, the top lined with metal spikes that made it clear whoever lived there didn't want uninvited guests. Snoop slowed his steps, glancing up at the house behind the fence, a one-story with a sagging roof, windows covered with blankets instead of curtains, the kind of place that looked abandoned but wasn't, the kind of house where people lived just enough to not get the city called on them. A curtain shifted slightly in one of the windows. Someone was watching. The old man was already at the fence, gripping the wood, pressing his face close to the gap between the slats, his breath shaky, his voice barely controlled. "Peanut?" Another bark. then scrambling. Tiny nails against concrete. Then silence. Snoop exhaled, rolling his shoulders back, cracking his neck. All right. Guess we knock. Snoop walked up to the front door, knocking twice, firm but not aggressive, just enough to make it clear he wasn't going anywhere. The sound echoed through the house. Silence. Then movement. The door cracked open an inch, just enough for a pair of suspicious eyes to peek out, darting between Snoop and the old man like they were already trouble. What? The voice behind the door muttered, low and scratchy, like the person hadn't spoken in a while. Snoop stayed relaxed, leaned on the doorframe slightly, keeping his voice calm, smooth, easy. That dog in your yard don't belong to you, my guy. The person on the other side of the door sniffed, eyes narrowing. Dogs wander. Ain't my fault if one ends up here. Snoop smirked, shaking his head. Nah. See, that dog's got a name, got an owner, got a home, and we ain't about to leave without him. The door stayed cracked, the person behind it not moving, not speaking, not making a decision, the energy shifting into something uncertain, something tense, something that could go one of two ways. The old man took a step closer, his fists clenched, his face set in something like desperation, something like anger, something like a man who had lost too much already and wasn't about to lose anything else. Snoop could feel it in the air, the way moments like this could flip in a second, the way the right word could fix everything or make it worse, the way this wasn't just about a dog anymore, it was about principle. Somewhere behind the house, Peanut barked again. The silence between them stretched. Then the door clicked and opened a little wider. The door opened just enough to show the guy behind it, skinny, scruffy, eyes darting like he was expecting trouble, like he was deciding if this was the kind of situation he could talk his way out of or if it was about to get real. Snoop didn't move, didn't change his stance, just kept his energy calm, like he had all the time in the world, like he wasn't worried about how this was gonna go, like he'd already decided Peanut was leaving with them, one way or another. The old man, though, was already tense, already stepping forward, already ready to snatch his dog back himself, but Snoop held out a hand, stopping him. Relax, OG. We handle this the right way. The guy in the doorway sucked his teeth, shaking his head. Look, man, I ain't steal no dog. He just showed up. Snoop nodded slowly, like he was considering it. Cool. So that means you won't mind letting him go. The guy hesitated, scratching his chin, glancing back toward the yard. I mean, I've been taking care of him, though. Feeding him. Little dude likes it here. Snoop raised an eyebrow. Yeah? That why you keeping him locked up behind a 10-foot fence? The guy didn't answer. Snoop sighed, adjusting his sunglasses. Aight, let's cut the nonsense. What's it gonna take? The guy smirked. 200. The old man flinched, his voice rising. 200? That's my damn dog. Snoop put a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. I got it, OG. But we ain't paying that. Snoop pulled out his phone, scrolling for a second, then held it up so the guy could see. You like music? The guy frowned. What? Snoop smirked, thumb hovering over the play button. I got unreleased tracks. Never been heard before. 2 songs. You let the dogs go. The guy's eyes flickered with interest, his body shifting slightly, the greed already creeping in before he even said a word. 2 songs? Snoop nodded. Exclusive. Never dropped. You get him, we walk out with the dog. Fair trade. The guy hesitated, then exhaled, stepping back, opening the door wider. Aight. But they better be fire. Snoop hit play. A deep, bass-heavy beat filled the air, smooth, effortless, rolling out of the speakers like liquid gold. The guy closed his eyes, nodding along, his lips twitching into a grin like he knew he was holding something special, like he could already imagine telling people he had a track nobody else had. Snoop let the song ride for a minute, then skipped to the next, Another unreleased banger, something with that laid-back California feel, something that felt expensive. By the time it faded out, the guy was fully convinced. He waved a hand toward the backyard. "Aight, deal's a deal. Take him." The old man didn't wait. The second the gate swung open, he was inside, dropping to his knees as Peanut ran full speed into his arms, his tiny body shaking, his tail wagging so hard it looked like it might fall off. The old man held him tight, his face buried in Peanut's fur, his shoulders shaking slightly, not saying a word, just holding onto the dog like he was afraid to let go. Snoop watched, exhaling slow, letting the moment breathe. After a few seconds, the old man stood up, clearing his throat, blinking fast like he wasn't about to cry in front of everybody. "Thank you," he muttered, voice thick. Snoop just nodded. All in a day's work. They walked out without another word, Peanut still curled up in the old man's arms, the city stretching out ahead of them, the day finally starting to settle back into something normal. They ended up back at the taco truck, full circle, back where it all started. Snoop ordered 2 burritos, slid one over to the old man without saying anything, just a quiet nod, just a small acknowledgement that sometimes things worked out. The old man tore off a piece of carne asada, fed it to Peanut, shaking his head like he still couldn't believe the dog was actually back. Snoop leaned back in his seat, watching the street, letting the day move around him, knowing that by tomorrow, this would just be another story, just another thing that happened, just another random day in LA. But somewhere out there, an old man was gonna sleep better tonight, and a tiny chihuahua was right where he belonged. Snoop took another bite of his burrito, exhaled slow, and smirked. Yeah. Just another day.